We're not reinventing the wheel. We're telling you about a system that the Rockefellers have used that benefits 150 years. We're talking about a system that the 1% use. We're talking about a system that banks use, Fortune 500 companies, right? What is it that they know that you may not?
Why don't the seemingly rich stay rich? Because making money is not enough. It's about control, continuity, and systems. These are the principles that the infinite banking concept makes accessible to ambitious professionals, entrepreneurs, and legacy builders like you. Jeremy, tell our audience what they're going to learn in today's episode.
Well, today we're going to talk about why most fortunes disappear within 2 generations and really how to break that cycle. We're going to examine the Rockefellers, how they built a family banking system that preserved wealth for over 150 years, and then look at the Vanderbilts, one of the most notable names in history, and the mistakes that they made where within 3 generations, they lost all their wealth. We're also going to look at how the infinite banking concept really replicates that Rockefeller family banking style and the actionable steps that our audience can take in order to ensure that their financial legacy outlasts them.
Man, this is jam-packed. You guys listen in. We're going to make sure that you not only know the context, but the steps to move forward and the action steps you need to take. So, Jeremy, most people believe that earning a high income is enough to build a financial legacy, but history tells a different story. What really happened with the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts?
The Vanderbilts were one of the richest families in America, right? Cornelius Vanderbilt, he built over a system of railroads and shipping, a wealth of about $100 million. And that was back in the 1870s. Today, that'd be between 2.5, almost $3 billion, right?
Hmm.
But by 1973, when all the Vanderbilt heirs gathered together, they noticed something that was really strange. Not a single one of them was a millionaire. Why? Well, they lived a lavish lifestyle. They did not reinvest. And probably most destructive was they didn't have a structured financial system to preserve their wealth across generations. So we look at them, the Vanderbilts, where they built the Biltmore Mansion, right? They have the breakers, some of the most beautiful architecture in the country that people flock to for their own personal vacations. These were these people's homes, and they lost it all. And what do you end up with? You contrast them with the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers, well, they built their fortune. It was the largest in American history. And they've still passed that fortune on to today, right? There's over 150 heirs to this day that still benefit from the Rockefeller banking system. How did they do that? Well, they did it through a series of trusts. They did it through disciplined reinvestments. And their wealth continues to grow because they took control of their banking system. And that control through a structured financial system has allowed them to perpetuate their wealth for generations. So, with that in mind, Jason, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you have learned in dealing with your members about passing down generational wealth?
There are a number of misconceptions we have with how people can pass down their wealth. Here's a big one. If I just save and invest, my wealth will last. And we know that's false because without structure, it's going to disappear. Without systems, processes, and a way to educate our future generations, that wealth that you've built is not going to pass on because you're not going to have the system and processes in place. Jeremy, give us another one.
How about high income earners automatically build wealth? I think we just busted that myth with the Vanderbilts, didn't we? So they had an entire system of wealth, $2.5 billion that just vanished. Why? They didn't have the proper systems, the proper structure in place. What they do? Well, aside from living lavishly and building amazing, homes, they also didn't pass down financial education. So they didn't have a structured system. They delegated their wealth, right? They delegated their money to other people, and they didn't pass on the financial IQ to help pass that wealth along. So, what do you think about this one, Jason? I'll set up a will and a trust to protect my family. Is that true or false?
I think it's not false, Jeremy. It is a piece of the planning, but it's an incomplete piece because it's not giving you the system, the way to carry on the money that it's going to be tax-free, away from the government, away from Wall Street. It's not going to be protected and guaranteed to grow and a guaranteed tax-free estate. Having a will is a great first step, but it's not going to solve everything. You might still end up in probate. You might still end up with other hands in the cookie jar, if you will. You might end up with the state or the government or other people that have an interest in your estate coming in, or probate, right? That happens all the time. So a will is definitely necessary, but it is not the whole picture of how someone's going to protect and create generational legacy.
Yeah, because a will is nothing more than a direction on how to distribute wealth, right? It doesn't preserve the wealth. It doesn't grow the wealth. It's not the structure in place that allows you to grow wealth at all. It's just a direction of my intent on how to redistribute wealth. That's what a will is. So, Jason, what's one thing to you that stands out on how the Rockefellers structured the wealth? How can today's professionals and entrepreneurs learn from that lesson?
Well, Jeremy, great question. They mastered the principle of control. Instead of giving up their wealth to the banks, taxes, and Wall Street, they kept their money inside their own financial system, allowing it to compound across generations. That's exactly what we do with the infinite banking process. It's a way to control your money, to build it guaranteed, and to remove it from other families that want to put their hands again in your cookie jar, whether it's Wall Street, the government, or the banks.
Can you elaborate? Because I know that probably sounds really well and good for a lot of our listeners, but can you elaborate what does that mean, right? So how are they actually doing it?
Well, they're doing it in probably one of the oldest entities in the United States. It's really boring, Jeremy. It's permanent whole life, right? Did everybody run away when they heard me say that? It's permanent whole life insurance that's structured for cash value. So with the Rockefellers, because they've been doing this for hundreds of years now, right? Hundreds of years. So the way they've structured it, they have different things in place where they know every time there's a new family member, they're expanding their banking system. They're making a way that they have the money continuing to grow in a guaranteed way that's tax-free, that's protected against liens and judgment, that's accessible, and that is giving them, all of that control, that liquidity to use the money. They're able to recycle capital across generations because they thought long term. That's the first thing they did when they built their process. They said, hey, how can we bring this from generation to generation while using the money and passing on, setting up future generations to have the tool of money to be able to do the things that they were passionate about? Because I'm not sure all the Rockefellers, there's 150 of them, I'm sure they're not exactly robots doing the same thing, right? Like they're going to have the thing that they're good at in the world, the thing they're adding value. And the system gives each of them a way to access that money, to be able to use it, but to continue it for future generations as well.
Yeah, and that kind of really gets back into one of Nelson Nash's principles of do whatever it is that you do, right? Whether that's I'm a farmer or I'm a teacher or I'm a financial advisor, do whatever you're doing, but do it well. But you also need to be in the banking business, right? And by being in the banking business, you're not just the person who deposits money to the bank, and you're not just the person who's borrowing money from the bank. You're actually the one in the middle. You're controlling the full system. You're not delegating your wealth to anyone else. You're fully taking control. You're taking back the banking functions in your life. The reason that the infinite banking concept, it mirrors the Rockefeller family banking model, is because it gives them an opportunity to place their wealth inside of a system that's been around for over 200 years, a system that is just nothing more than a contract. It provides guarantees growth, right? And so long as you do what you say you're going to do, which is pay your premium deposits, you get uninterrupted compounding. There are dividends that have been paying out of these for every single year. While not guaranteed, they do pay out of them. But it's important that these are structured in a way for maximum cash value. A lot of folks, when they go out and buy their life insurance, and the reason they don't like life insurance, they're buying a death benefit. We rarely talk about the death benefit. It's very, very important. But traditional life insurance, what do you want to do? Pay as little as you can to get as maximum death benefit as you can. We flip the script. We try to give you as much cash value and actually lower the death benefit. And by doing that, you're able to create a banking system. So if you want to understand like how these things are structured, they are structured in a unique designed way to maximize the cash value, to work as a banking system. This is not something that Jake from State Farm is trained in how to do. So make sure that you're working with an actual strategist. My recommendation, Jason's recommendation, work with someone from the Nelson Nash Institute, right? The I was never trained as a traditional life insurance agent. I don't talk about death benefits. I talk about banking for the living benefits of it, for the cash value, in the same way that the Rockefellers use it. Use it for life insurance, not death insurance. Jason, you have anything to add to that?
No, it's the living benefits that we're talking about. I listed them. You went through a great reason why we structure things the way we do, why it's specially engineered for you each and every time, why we have to meet you where you're at financially, help you not only solve a problem in the immediate, right? Because progress equals happiness. Think about this. I always talk about the three T's, which are the train, to test, and to teach. And that's the best way we learn anything, right? We're here right now sharing information. We're showing you historical context of why the Rockefellers were successful, and you're still aware of them. Why there's books like what would the Rockefellers do, and how you hear the Rockefeller waterfall method over years. And when you really go down to the root of it, when we really go down to the base, that structure is built in whole life insurance. And why? Because life insurance companies only have one variable, and they have a whole team of actuaries, Jeremy, that sit there and they know how long you and I are going to live. That's a little creepy for all you listeners. When you're going through the process, you have to understand the science between actuarial science. And one of the reasons that you have Gary Brecka building 10x Health, when you look into this, is because they're only betting on one thing. How long are we going to live and keep paying our premium deposits into the life insurance company? And this is why they're profitable every single year, is because they have that down to the science. And we know, any good scientists out there, any engineers listening, you want as little variables as possible. So what Jeremy's talking about and what he's saying is that we want to use this for the living benefits. Now, the name scares people away. But the name, if we really understand that that death benefit is also the second guarantee, it's the cherry on top. It's nothing to worry about. And you're probably going to have more death benefit than you would if you're getting a term policy, because you're doing this to store your wealth, to build your wealth, to finance all the things in your life and really bring banking back to that you and me level, which is why Jeremy and I do this. We both practice and we get to teach it. And so what I'm saying here is we're training you. We're giving you a ton of information so you can continually learn. And if you're like Jeremy, you're going to go and you're going to poke holes in everything. You're going to look for ways that this can't be true. It's too good to be true. But the next thing for anyone listening who is curious and wants to set this up for themselves is testing. You have to get on the mat. You have to be like Yoda. There is no try. You can't try to have life insurance. You either do or you do not. That's the only way this is going to happen.
Yeah. So really, the IBC that we talk about, it's a financial strategy, right? It's a system, it's a process. But if you're doing and you're doing what the Rockefellers are doing, you also have to focus on education. You got to focus on long-term stewardship of wealth. This isn't just, hey, I started it, I have this system, I pass away, and what happens to my heirs? That's the Vanderbilts. The Vanderbilts built a great system, but what they forget? Education and long-term stewardship. So while they had a lot of money, they weren't able to pass down that generational wealth because they kind of didn't pass on the financial stewardship and the education needed to maintain that wealth. 100 years go by, and one of the most recognizable family names was broke. Broke. The most notable Vanderbilt that's around today is Anderson Cooper.
Yes.
Anderson Cooper's self-made. He didn't inherit his wealth, not at all. But he's from the Vanderbilt family. But his mother didn't give him anything, right? They were broke by the end of it. So it's really interesting when you study them. She told him very early on, there will be no family trust for you. And Anderson Cooper worked so hard because he wasn't anticipating inheriting anything. He had to create his own system. He had to become a builder, right? So if you start looking at long-term stewardship, someone has to plant the flag. For me and my family, that's me, right? For you, Jason, that's you and your wife, Patty, and your son,
Same. Yeah.
Connor, would be generation two, right? So you're generation one, generation two, but you're not just passing along wealth, you're passing along the education, the long-term stewardship of it, so that we are banking like a Rockefeller, not like a Vanderbilt.
And the more, and that's so well said. And the more important thing, like if you think about the story you just mentioned with Anderson Cooper, it's his mom set the expectation in a way where he had to go out and find what he loved to build, what he was passionate about, what he was going to do repeatedly to go on the road to mastership. I always talk about how there's different levels of being a banker. You can have a glorified savings account, which is great. It's better than having your money in a bank, and banks know this. That's why they have so much bully, right, Jeremy?
Yeah. Banks own over $200 billion in bank collections. Like you said.
225 billion as of quarter two of 2024. So you know they have a lot more by now, because that's almost a half a year ago, right? That's almost a half a year ago that they had 225 billion. But then what I was getting to is it's really understanding that you can do this, what we teach at different levels. You can be have a glorified savings. You can be someone that's just purchasing the major things in your life through your own system, meaning you're keeping the interest. Or you can do what the banks do and start earning interest on your money. And then you go to the stage of that it's going to be a lifestyle. And no matter where you're at right now, some people might have a couple policies. Some people might not know what to do with their policies, right, Jeremy? And other people, it's really just understanding that it's very much about where you're focused, what you're trying to do, and having that long range thinking always at the top of whatever you're trying to do. That has to be the most present thing. Like for me, I moved away from something. Most people are moving away from something. I moved away from a feeling of stress, anxiety, worry when it came to money, and I made enough money. I mean, for most people, making $180,000, $200,000 a year, you think, wow, you've got it made depending on where you come from. And for me, like that seemed ludicrous if I would have said I made that much money when I was a kid, because I never dreamed of being wealthy. That was never something that was even crossed my mind. And so when I started moving away from stress and worry, and I just realized I needed a system, I needed a philosophy, a belief. Maybe a belief is what I'm getting to. Everything starts with what you believe, and what you believe is what you're going to find. And so if you're here, you're listening, you're learning, you're training, you're getting ready at some point to test, is my imagination. And then you got to turn around and teach others.
Yeah, because infinite banking, again, we don't focus on the product. Like you said in an earlier episode, banking is a verb, right? Banking is a process. We focus on the financial structure that we're setting up, the product that we use whole life. I mean, if I could do it with water bottles or some other asset, I would, right? It just happens to be something that was structured pre 1913. So before the IRS got involved, before the Federal Reserve got involved,
What?
we have these tax benefits. It's a system that's been put in place prior to the government getting involved. That's why we're able to do what it is that we do, because there's all these grandfather assets, all these different features and benefits of the product, but it's not the product that's going to make you wealthy. Just like having money doesn't mean that you're financially secure. There are plenty of high income earners out there who stress about money, right? AARP had a statistic: 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 70%. The wealthiest country in the world, 7 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. Do you think that's an income problem, Jason? Is that an income problem that people have?
No, Jeremy, I think that the marketing in America is really, really good, and it's prevalent and it's everywhere. And that's not all. And everyone just, if you could give yourself some permission, grant yourself some empathy. We are groomed to give up control. We are taught to live paycheck to paycheck, day to day, week to week. We don't think long term, and we just haven't evolved to, but it's there for you. It's there for you. It's simple, but it's not easy. I just wrote an article not that long ago about just sitting down and really starting with thinking, where do I want to take my family? Where do I see my family 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Where are my kids going to be? Where are my kids going to be? And that takes some imagination. That takes some belief. That takes some faith. But that's really where this journey starts, is really knowing where you're going to go, where you want to go, and giving yourself permission to dream. Be a kid again. Be ridiculous. Think whatever you want to think, especially when you're a business owner. Because I'm telling you, business owners, I know, Jeremy knows, There is always more to do.
Hmm.
There's always more to do. There's always a never-ending to-do list. And the more that you learn, the better you get. Guess what? The best part of it is more people want to talk to you. They want to be around you. They want your time. But if you don't have the systems in place, the processes in place, you're not going to be able to serve those folks. And so it's the same thing when it comes to banking. It's having the systems in place. It's really having the big vision in place, and then just doing the simple thing of making more money than you spend, and then knowing where you're going to store that and putting that process in place.
Yeah. So if you're looking at how to get from short-term thinking to really legacy thinking, it's putting, like you said, a system in place. You have to create a financial banking system. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to live your life. Jason's not going to live your life. No one's more impacted by your financial situation than you, right? So, how do you keep that wealth inside of your own financial ecosystem like the Rockefellers? The way that we like to do it is through properly structured whole life insurance designed for infinite banking, right? Because again, that's the process that we use. The product is there because we get the tax benefits. It is what it is. Like it or not, that's the product that's really, really good at doing this. The process behind it, the financial IQ, that's doing what you're doing today, listening to the podcasts. It's reading the books. It's getting into the blogs. It's having a conversation with Jason. It's having a conversation with Jeremy. Will help you put together your system, but you're the one who has to implement it. You cannot delegate your wealth. Okay. You cannot delegate your life and give it over to Wall Street. You cannot give it over to banks. You can't be giving it over to financial advisors. And then at the end of your life, when you're going into retirement, wonder, why can I not retire? If you
Mm.
don't take control of the banking functions in your life, you're going to end up wondering what happened to my life, right? So, step one, take back control. Do not delegate. Number two, educate your system, educate your heirs, create financial stewardship with what Jason's doing with his family meetings, bringing his wife and his son together and talking about money. We said in an earlier episode, we're going to be uncomfortable. We're going to talk about
Mm.
money, right? We're going to make it uncomfortable. And everyone, you think about your friends. I just got a new job. Great. What's at your job? Well, we have a coffee bar and free parking, and they give me matching on my 401k. You know what they don't talk about? Money. How much are you making? What are your pay increases? People don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about all these other features and benefits, but they don't want to talk about money. And you have to talk about money if you're going to pass on the lessons of money and pass on financial stewardship. The other thing that I'd recommend is leveraging your system, right? Warren Buffett has a quote out there: if the poor just did what the rich would do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're telling you about a system that the Rockefellers have used that benefits 150 years. We're talking about a system that the 1% use. We're talking about a system that banks use, Fortune 500 companies, right? What is it that they know that you may not? Just because you don't like the product of life insurance doesn't mean that it can't benefit you when it's designed for banking. That's probably what I can't emphasize enough, right? Financial stewardship, financial education, but working with the right people to make sure that it's designed to carry out your wishes, not mine, not Jason's, yours. You cannot delegate your wealth to other people.
I love that. It's very much like the saying you have in the military, right? Jeremy. I mean, it's not my saying. I wasn't in the military like you were. Thank you for your service, by the way, my brother. But if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. That's the saying. And that's what this is for everyone. It's you taking that financial ownership. You have to take ownership of it first. You have to know what you're earning. You have to be comfortable, or you want to be. You don't have to do anything, by the way. You want to be comfortable talking about money. Money is nothing more than a tool. The more comfortable you are talking about money, the more you're aware of your rules, your mindset around it, the faster you're going to go. And you're going to go faster with other people, right? It's easy to go fast alone. You go further together. That's why Jeremy and I are doing this together. This is why I have a money meeting with my wife, Patty, every Tuesday at 9 a.m. This is why we talk to our son, Connor, about this and his banking system. My son, Diego, is also interested in becoming his own bank. He started a new position. So right now, he's saving 80 to 85% of what he earns because we learned in the past when we left it up to him, it wasn't happening. And so that was a growth opportunity, right? It's either a blessing or a lesson, Jeremy. And his lesson was wait, I'm going to get money and I'm going to spend it on things that I want to buy because they make me happy, which is awesome. But first, he wasn't paying himself. He wasn't respecting himself. And he learned that. So his first paycheck, he transferred 85% into our account. Said, Mom, Dad, take this. Mom, Dad, take this. And if you have that opportunity, if you're young enough and you're still at home and you live with your parents and you're working, well, start saving way more than the 10 to 20% that we recommend. Jeremy, I talked to a business owner the other day that 10 years ago, he made this decision. I'm going to save half of what I earn. Now, this guy makes about 100 grand a year, but he's so efficient with his processes and he hasn't even started infinite banking yet. So you can even take what I'm saying right here and optimize your life so much because he's saving 50% of what he earns. He saves $4,000 a month. He's got a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and his wife stays home to take care of the kids. Like that is someone who's disciplined and has a process, a system in place. And that's kind of where it starts, Jeremy. It doesn't have to be that big of an example, but I bet you're going to remember that, hey, someone making $8,000 a month is saving half,
Yeah.
and they have no debt, they have a mortgage, right? And they have a rental property. So they put systems in place. And if he takes that money and puts it into this, he's creating that multi-generational wealth by starting the process for his kids, for his wife, protecting, providing, and creating. And it starts with being a creator.
Yeah. So there's two things, like two lessons I just, thought of as you're, talking about that. You don't have to be a millionaire, let alone a billionaire, to pass on generational wealth, right? You just need a good system. Personally, I believe that the system that's going to help you do it faster and safer is the infinite banking concept. I truly believe that. You can do it, like you said, with a traditional savings account. You can do it with a high yield savings. You can do it with, there are other assets out there. But if you want to do it faster and safer, I recommend implementing the infinite banking concept in your life, working with someone who can help you do what's meaningful, do what's manageable, building a
Hmm.
system that you can pass on to your life, to your heirs. The other concept behind that is there's there's the financial IQ, because someone who's doing something like that, they're building healthy habits. That person who is saving half of their income knows where their income is going, right? They keep track. What is measured matters. If it matters to you to pass on generational wealth, measure it. Now, I'm not saying get in and watch your bank account every single day. Are there people who do it? Yeah. Can you accuse me of doing it shamelessly? Yes. You know,
Same.
I'm not going to lie. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I open up my phone and I open a Bible app and I read scripture. The very first thing I do before I get out of bed. The second thing I do, I check my accounts.
That's wild. We didn't talk about this, Jeremy. The first thing I do is I close my eyes. I say the things I'm grateful for. I set my intentions. I think about God and like thank God, for all of the things in my life, for having the opportunity, and then I know what my day looks like. The second thing I do is I check my Bank of America account to see how I'm doing because a few years ago, I ran away from money 4 years ago and I had debt. And I was someone that would be considered as not having a system, not understanding how money worked, not understanding the game I was playing. Guess what, guys and gals? If you're playing a game and you don't know the rules, do you think you're going to win?
No.
No. You,
Here's actually the sad thing, Jason. A lot of people are playing a game that they don't know that they're playing.
yes. Yes. Yes, and that's one of my second favorite quote by Nelson Nash is, if you don't if people don't understand the problem, why would they ever care about the solution? And so if you're listening to this, you're listening because you hear about the Rockefellers, you hear about how not to be the Vanderbilts, you hear about Disney. And we didn't talk about, we were going to talk about some of the most famous people who have built wealth and they ended up not keeping wealth. And one of them, it just stuck in my mind the whole time we've been talking was Mike Tyson. He built up over $400 million and lost it all. We've seen that guy in movies like The Hangover. We've seen him all over the place. And recently, we saw him pulling punches and biting his gloves so he didn't knock the block off of Jake Paul because he was going to get paid $10 million if he didn't do that. It was a spectacle. And that's because he didn't have the systems and processes in place to manage the money. He didn't have people. He never took ownership of his money as my hallucination. He never said, hey, how is this working? How are you guys doing with it? He trusted other people. And you see what happens if other people aren't going to care about your money more than you do.
Yeah, he delegated, right? He delegated as well.
Delegate.
And again, great boxer. Go out and be a great boxer, but also get in the banking business. Everyone should be in the banking business. If you need money, if you rely on money, you should be in the banking business. Now there are folks out there who live off grid. They don't need it, right? I can't say that IBC is going to work great for them because honestly, they still in the barter and trade system. There are people who do that. But for everyone else, you should be in the banking business.
That's it. And so, how do we help our listeners, Jeremy, shift from that short term financial survival to long term wealth building?
So it's just going to get back to what I said earlier, right? First and foremost, you have to create a banking system. You have to take ownership, recognize that no one's come to save you, right? There are people who will help you. I'll help you. Jason will help you. But you have to figure out what's meaningful, what's manageable for you, and create your own banking system. Take back control. Take back control from Wall Street. Take back control from Vanguard and BlackRock and all these big financial institutions. Take back the banking function in your life. The second thing you got to do, education. Do what you're doing right now. Listen, build your financial IQ. As you build your financial IQ, I'm going to challenge you to also build your emotional IQ. Why is it that you're building what you're building? Okay. Everyone says, I want to achieve financial freedom. What does that look like? Guess what? As an American, you probably have enough savings in the bank to move down to Venezuela and live a good life so long as the government doesn't find you. Okay. Like there are places, if you want to retire and live on a beach and drink mocktails or cocktails or whatever you're going to do, you could probably do that today. But if you want to do it in America, figure it out. Is it really retirement that you want, or is it something more? Do you want to be able to pass on generational wealth? Do you want to be able to support your church or communities? Do you want to uplift your neighborhood and your society? Like usually retirement, I hate that word, Jason, because retirement, who wants to be retired, right? Retirement, as Nelson like describes it, is to be removed from service. How how scary is that to be recognized? I'm obsolete. I don't need to be in service anymore. For me, I don't think retirement is what a lot of people are truly chasing. So as you build your financial IQ, also build your emotional IQ. Figure out why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And then just stop delegating, right? Like take back the control. Like this is your life. No one's going to live it but you.
And that's it. And so you have the choice now. You've listened to us. You can find us. You can go to our WealthWise Banking. Keep learning. Keep training with us. Eventually, you'll get on the mat. Eventually, you will test. You will want to practice this. You want to have a conversation with Jeremy or myself where we'll help you get started. But first, train. Keep learning. Go look this stuff up. Think for yourself. Think independently. Take ownership of it. We're just here to guide you. We are nothing but mentors. We're here to spread the word, to invite you onto the infinite banking bus. Because you know why? It's an infinitely large bus. A lot of people can get on that bus. You can get on, you can get right back off if you want to. You know, there is no ticket to ride other than you educating yourself, you finding out, like Jeremy just said, why does this matter? What are you trying to do in contribution and good? You don't want to retire. You want to matter. You want to have fun. You want to be someone that's living an intentional life and doing the things like you want to be. You don't want to just do things so you have things so you can just no longer be here. We want to matter and we want to matter to others. So, what does that look like to you? Once you know that, then keep learning, keep training, eventually your test, and then maybe you'll come on here with us someday and you'll tell your story and teach others.
I couldn't have said it better than myself with that. Jason, are we
We
done for
did it
today?
again, brother. Another one. Why you rather be a Rockefeller than a Vanderbilt and what it looks like to put a simple process in place. It might be simple, but we're not telling you it's easy. So keep learning. Until next time, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for joining us on WealthWise Banking. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and give us a like. It's a simple way to help others discover these empowering strategies and join our community. Together, we're building a network of people who believe financial freedom is within everyone's reach. Remember, financial independence is about making every dollar work for you. one step at a time. Until next time, stay inspired, stay in control, and keep building your legacy the wise way.